is what you're going to learn in this video. A Queen Bess rose going from a rosebud all the way to a full-blown rose. Today we are going to be doing the Queen Bess rose. Queen Bess rose is unique in that the petals in the inside of the rose and on the outside of the rose are almost exactly the same size. Therefore, when you have a set of 7 petal cutters, in our petal cutter set, number 237 from Creative Cutters, you can then do 7 different sizes of roses. They come in a variety of colors, and we're going to show you here one that is in coral pink. So to begin with, we take a piece of 22 gauge wire and we cut it into a 4-inch strip. We then cover the wire with florist tape. You have your choice of white or green or pale green. We're using here moss green and we're using white. So you take your tape splitter. Today we're going to use the moss green tape. Just pull it, stretch it, place it in the back end of your tape splitter. It goes down over the blades. Top goes on and you pull it through, and it splices your tape into 3 pieces. You take the tape, put the wire around the tape about 3/4 of an inch below the end of the tape. You start turning the tape to the top, go over top of the tape that you started with, and roll down. This secures your tape here at this end because one piece of tape has gone over top of itself. You don't want the tape to unravel when it's inside the bud. You then take a needle nose pliers and then just gently bend this over the end of your needle nose pliers to make a hook. As you can see there, you have a nice hook. Now we're going to just take a piece of melon gum paste. This is Ray's quick drying gum paste. You want it about that big. You're going to take it in your hand and you're then going to roll it into a cone shape. First you go into a ball, then you take the heel part of your hand and go over the edge to make it a cone shape. And there you have a cone shape. You take the hooked part of your wire, push it inside your cone shape, pinch the bottom to secure that ball into your cone. Pinch the bottom so it looks like so. You will let this now dry for 48 hours so it becomes nice and hard so it is easy to work with. So we're going to start with our number 3 cutter, which is a middle-sized cutter. And we are going to cut out 6 petals. The paste should be thin, that it is almost like the thickness of cardstock. Take your thin petal on your thinning board and you put a tiny bit of cornstarch. Pick up your silk veining tool that you get from Gem Tools in Australia or at Creative Cutters in Richmond Hill here in Canada, and a metal ball tool and roll around the edges. You're going to now choose either a tapered chisel brush or a flat chisel brush. And what we're going to do is take one of the petals. I like using it on the skinning board so you can actually see. And we're going to take and use just a tiny, tiny bit of pink color coming in from the edges. leaving the front and main part of the petal the melon color that we started out with. All rose petals always have a soft white to ivory to yellow in the core center of each petal. So now you can see the petals, you can see the shading here and the lines of the texturing from your silk veining tool. If you are going to be making a petal a rose that is 3.5 inches in diameter, this would be the petal, which is your second largest petal, and your bud should be approximately 60% of the length of your longest petal, which is exactly the same size, as you can see here, of your number 3 petal that we are using. So the rose that we are going to be using and finishing up with is 3.5 inches. So we are now going to pick up one of our petals. We're going to moisten the bottom third of this petal, and we are going to wrap this around with 1/2 inch over the top, and if your bud is really dry, it won't adhere to it, so it wraps around. And what this does is it actually closes the color for your initial bud that all of your other colors are going to go around. Then we are going to take 2 other petals, moisten the bottom again, and these 2 will be our first 2 wrap petals, and they are 1/8 of an inch higher than your original petal. They go halfway around, and then this one comes and tucks in underneath and wraps the other way around. So you have 2 wrapped petals. Going around your bud. If you hold this up to the light, you will see that your end of your top of your bud ends approximately here, and from here to the top, which is another third of your whole distance, is actually hollow, so when the light comes through it, you get a beautiful, beautiful shading of color, giving it a wonderful pale shade and wonderful coloring inside of your rose. So now we are going to wrap another 3 petals around the bud, and that will give us an actual bud. So we take one, we only dampen the left side of the bud. It goes right up the center and again it goes 1/4 of an inch higher than the previous petals, and the open side that is not been glued, again that is the side that you are going to wet your next left side of your petal, and it will slide inside. As you can see, your petal opens up for it to slide right inside of the previous petal. And keep them the same height. Again, it opens right up. You moisten your 3rd petal. pinch the bottom of your rose, and voila! There you have a beautiful, beautiful rose. As you can see, the paleness makes it a very pretty summer rose with the yellow inside and the pale pink edges. What we're going to do now is take a ball of melon paste and a third of that amount in white and marble the two together. You do not want it all, you just want it marbled. You want white streaks running through it, so you're just gently going to marble it so it gets streaky. Like so. I'm going to take a ball of that, roll it into a ball, put it on your board, and roll it thin. You can see in here I have put one of the leaves that had some red in, of the pink in it, so that you have some variation as we are rolling it nice and thin. Of this, we are now going to cut out 5 petals. Again, keep lifting your paste as you roll it thinner so that it is paper thin. So it becomes almost translucent so that light can penetrate through it and show off your wonderful colors and texture of your petals. Again, same size petal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we are again picking them up from the point, putting them on the thinning board, taking our brush, pale pink, and again coming from the edge down, taking our silk veining tool and rolling to the edges. Lift, flipping over, again, pale pink, just along the edges, thinning again with our silk veiner to give it texture. As you can see, the texture lines, taking the ball tool and thinning out the edges. Lifting, putting a tiny bit of cornstarch underneath just so that we can ruffle the 2 outside edges. The outside edges on a Queen Bess rose curl around. You can use your silk veiner. You can use a paintbrush, or you can use a round cocktail stick to get these to curl. So you want to have these things curled, okay? And you'll do that now with 5 petals. What we're going to do, what we've just done is we've just moistened the bottom part of the flower, and we are going to pop it now into a piece of tin foil, a 3 by 2 inch piece of tin foil. And we are now going to just pick up the petals that we have curved back and gently place them just about 1/4 of an inch longer than the previous row of petals, where the petals now are going to touch one another where they curl back. purpose of the tin foil is so that the moment we need to support these petals, if we have to flip them up and look at how they are forming onto the rosebud, we can do that at any time. If the tin foil was not there, we would have no support to actually curve around the petals and hold them where we want them to be. Okay. So just pinch the tin foil so it can curve up here and we can see exactly where we want all of these petals to be. Okay. Again, the tin foil comes around the bottom base of the petals. As you can see, I'm pinching here around the bottom and the base of these petals to give it support, because remember, it is the base petals here that are thick. We don't thin those at all, so that they have the support to actually hold up the whole petal. As you saw, one fell off, and we're now putting it in where it belongs. Because these petals still should be at a 80-degree angle, almost straight up and down. Okay. Now, as you can see, the petals have dried, and we are now going to add 7. The next layer has 7 petals on it. I've already got the petals already rolled, dusted, and we're now going to just moisten the bottom. So we place the petal, again, about 1/8 of an inch higher than the row before. And just, again, the bottom is the only thing that it gets moistened. We take our brush, moisten only the bottom. And as you can see, the petals are separating and giving you a wonderful flare, as you can see from the petal. Sometimes the petals fall off, it's all right. You just place them back on. Do not use too much water, because this is sugar after all, and water and sugar melt and dissolve your petals. Now I have just made a simple cone out of tin foil, just a that I'm now sliding over top to support my rose, so that when I look at it, I can see where the petals are and realign them where I want them to be. Opens up, This gives you how much you want to open your petals and how much you want your rose to open. It's all controlled by your tin foil. And as you can see, you have a very beautiful rose. 49 hours later. If you find that you have gotten dark spots on here, that the pink is too dark, that you don't like, we're going to take this separate petal here that I've darkened down so everyone can see. You take titanium dioxide on a angled chisel brush, and you go in reverse from the center of the petal out. Go from the center of the petal to the outside. As you can see, it whitens and lightens. And then you bring it in again. And that will lighten your petal. A few years ago, Betty Van Nostrand, who is the head of the New York Culinary Institute in New York City, devised this wonderful board. It is a Mexican hat board with grooves in it that allowed you to make Mexican hats. And you take your green gum paste, roll it into a point, push it into a hole. They're all different sizes and shapes, which you're going to totally enjoy. Take your rolling pin and roll your gum paste thin. Beautiful Mexican hat. You then roll it thinner because it's not as thin as what you want. You can even thin it on your larger board. The Mexican hat board will save you hours and hours of time. Then you take your calyx cutter, press down. Because it is a plastic cutter, you then pick up your paste and your cutter, and to get it nice and smooth and a sharp edge, you roll your rolling pin over top the edges of your cutter. As you can see, you get a very wonderful smooth edge. Just like you would get if you are, not as good, but similar to if you were using a real metal cutter. Gently now take and press your calyx out. Take your embroidery scissors and cut along the impressions made by the cutter. You then take your frilling tool Go in the center and rotate. Again, enlarge the hole. And then enlarge again with your ball tool. Then you take a piece of foam and gently elongate your edges of we then take our full-blown rose, as you can see it's nicely frilled. Take the wire and place it inside the hole and thread it through the bottom. And that's why we frilled the bottom. We can now elongate, because of the Mexican hat, right along so it fits exactly the same shape of your rose. Then take a little bit of water, moisten the sepals of your calyx, and then gently push them up. I like to have mine not open and down, because if they're open and down, they have a tendency to break very quickly. So I just press them up to the actual rose. I then take my small frilling tool, make an edge around the bottom, okay, and that is your rose hip. And this, of course, is the Queen Bess rose. And of course, our next video will be of the English roses, which you'll see on English Albert China. Till next time, goodbye.